Hello everyone, and welcome back to Turkish Spotlight Secrets. I'm thrilled you're here, because today we're diving into a story that fans of Mert Ramazan Demir and Afra Saraçoğlu still whisper about like a secret they share with the night. Our title says it all, our moment together was magical and unforgettable. And yes, we're going to unpack what that meant for them, how that feeling showed itself behind the cameras and away from the red carpet, and why it became a thread neither of them could untie even when the noise around them got loud. If you love hearing the heartbeats behind the headlines, make sure you tap subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update from Turkish Spotlight Secrets. What makes a moment like that truly shimmer? For Mert and Afra, it was never just about a crisp photo at a premiere or the perfect pose after an award. It was something more private, something that moved them when there were no flashbulbs, when the city was quiet, when Istanbul's wind hummed at their backs like a lullaby. Magic, for them, was connection, the kind you can't force and can't rehearse. And unforgettable came from the intensity of feeling and the shock of the new, that first time a look became a promise, that second when a joke cracked into raw honesty, that instant when both knew, without announcing it to the world, that their lives had shifted a little to make space for each other. Everyone saw the electricity on set. But the real spark was in the silent beats, between takes, when an assistant adjusted a light, and they shared a glance that said, "I hear you." That's where magic breathes, when two people truly see each other. There was a night, long after the crew had wrapped, when they stayed to rehearse a scene they didn't need to rehearse. No cameras, no pressure, just them running lines softly until the lines stopped being lines. Mert would toss a half-smile, Afra would answer with a look that landed like a secret handshake, and suddenly it was as if the script belonged to their own history. And why unforgettable? Because the rhythm changed. Early on, when rumors circled like seagulls over the Bosphorus, they avoided easy stunts and instead let their comfort grow in quiet corners. Unforgettable bloomed the first time they stepped out of a car on a rainy night and didn't rush inside. They stood there laughing under a shared hooded coat, letting the city soak them through. A driver called out, "Are you too serious?" And they just shrugged like kids who'd skipped class. Moments like that aren't grand gestures, they're shockingly simple, but they reset the heart. Let's break down the ingredients that shaped that magic for them, because the pattern is clear if you look closely. First, full presence. Imagine a morning in Sea Hangar, the kind that smells like coffee grounds and damp stone. They slipped into a tiny cafe where the chairs wobbled just enough to make you hold your cup with both hands. Phones face down. No agents, no stylists, no clock. Mert was tracing a chipped edge on his saucer. Afra was telling him about a book she couldn't stop reading, making wild hand gestures, knocking her knee against the table with a thud that made them both burst out laughing. He teased her for underlining every other line. She mimicked his on-set serious actor stare. That was the whole plan, no plan. In that kind of attention, a coffee feels like a gift, an hour stretches like a summer afternoon, and the world outside forgets your name. He remembers the exact thread color in her sweater from that morning. She remembers the angle of sunlight on his jaw. Presence turns small things into landmarks. Second, shared vulnerability. It's easy to believe people like them float through a life padded with applause. But the pressure was real, and it pressed down in complicated ways. One evening, after a long day, they retreated to a trailer that hummed with the soft electric buzz of the set winding down. He admitted he was terrified of messing up, not a scene, but her balance, her peace. He told her that success felt like a wave he didn't always know how to ride, and that the thought of hurting her path made him tight in the chest. She exhaled and confessed she sometimes woke up afraid of being judged for things she couldn't control. The two of them sat on opposite benches, knees almost touching, talking in circles until the circles became a line they could walk together. He showed her a script margin where he'd written, "Does he run, or does he stay?" She smiled through tears and said, "He stays." When people dare to be soft in a world that rewards armor, that is when intimacy roots itself. Third, novelty and surprise. Their lives moved quickly, but their best memories came when they went off script. There was a dawn when he woke her before call time and led her to a small boat with a stubborn engine and a thermos of hot tea. They drifted along the Bosphorus as the sun stretched over the water, gulls slicing the air like living commas. Afra wrapped her scarf tighter and whispered, "We're going to be freezing on set," and Mert laughed, promising to steal 2 extra blankets. Another day, she turned his dressing room into a tiny cinema, stringing up fairy lights and cueing their favorite old Italian film, the one they'd been quoting for weeks. The smell of popcorn filled that cramped space, and they cheered for lines no one else remembered. When life breaks from the expected, memory sits up and takes perfect notes. Fourth, shared emotion. When they do something together, really together, the feeling multiplies. Think of that eye-watering sprint they filmed in the cold, the scene that left them breathless for reasons the script couldn't explain. They collapsed on the curb after the take, laughing and wheezing until crew members leaned in to check if they were okay. Or picture the awards night when a hush fell before the announcement, and she squeezed his hand under the table. Whether they won or not mattered less than the look they exchanged in those suspended seconds, the look that said, "We're in this." Another time, a street musician played an aching tune under a bridge, and they stood there with the city roaring overhead, eyes damp, neither pretending to be tough. When emotion is shared, it becomes a chorus instead of a solo, and that chorus lingers in the head long after the song ends. Fifth, intention. Magic doesn't always stumble in, sometimes you open the door for it. On a Sunday off, they decided to let the day be small and deliberate. They cooked menemen in a pan that burned a little around the edges. He left a note under her tea glass that just read, "Later." She tucked a Polaroid into his jacket pocket, her face half out of frame, laughing. They planned only one promise, no rush. Weeks later, when schedules pulled them in opposite directions, they met in the middle by creating rituals, a walk without phones, a half-hour of silence next to each other, a shared playlist updated at midnight. Afra suggested a tiny tradition: each month, they would try one new thing, no matter how silly. One month it was a pottery class where their bowls slumped like sleepy turtles. Another month they planted a fig sapling in a corner of a garden she loves. Intention is the quiet architect of unforgettable. Now, maybe you're thinking, sure, but ordinary life is noisy and fast, and not everyone can rent a boat before sunrise. Fair. But watch how their magic hid in the details. Full presence didn't ask for ticketed events, it needed 2 chairs and the courage to put their phones away. Vulnerability didn't require a podium, it needed the honesty to say, "I'm a little scared." Novelty wasn't a luxury, it was a new street to walk or a first attempt at something clumsy and real. Shared emotion bloomed in laughter on a curb and in a song under concrete. Intention was a note under glass, a plan to keep time from running the whole show. When the tabloids shouted and the echo got fierce, they learned to shrink the world to a human scale. He started collecting moments like shells, the velvet of her voice when she read a line too softly, the way she pinched the bridge of her nose when she was pretending not to yawn, the scrawl of her handwriting on a script where she'd written, "This scene belongs to us." She, in turn, memorized his cold hands and his habit of oversalting fries. Gossip swirled, as gossip does, but those domestic truths outlasted the storm. One particularly late night, there was a scene that demanded tears. They had both been running on fumes, and there was a pause after the director called cut. The crew drifted away to reset lights. He was still shaking a little. She pressed her forehead to his for a moment, no words, no performance, and it steadied him. That glance would have looked ordinary if you weren't paying attention. But the ordinary, when held with care, becomes extraordinary. That's the line between something forgotten and something that stays. Over time, they built an inner world, a place walled not by secrecy but by trust. If you asked them what the magical, unforgettable moment actually was, they might point to different snapshots. He might say it was the day their rehearsal went off the rails and turned into a conversation about ambition and fear. She might say it was the day he rescued a cat from a puddle and carried it across the street like a prince with a soggy crown. They would both be right, because the essence isn't an exact timestamp, it's the feeling that together, they were more awake, more themselves, and less afraid. Now it's your turn to step into the story. Think about the minute that still warms your chest. Was it loud, with applause and flashing lights, or was it quiet, with chipped china and uneven chairs? Drop that memory in the comments, because the way you lived it might light up someone else's day. And as you listen to the echo of Mert and Afra's journey, ask yourself where presence, vulnerability, novelty, shared emotion, and intention are living in your own world. What small ritual could you design this week? What secret note could you slip under a glass? What new street could you walk? So, to wrap it all up, we watched how their connection created the spark, how emotion and newness poured kerosene on that flame, and how intention kept it burning even when the wind picked up. We saw that being truly there for each other turns a morning coffee into a landmark. We saw that opening their hearts didn't make them weak, it made the bond flexible, able to bend without breaking. We saw that a surprise doesn't have to be grand to be unforgettable, sometimes it's a boat with a stubborn engine or a film playing on a makeshift screen. We saw that laughing, crying, and sprinting side by side makes the memory louder, and that planning for tenderness is not unromantic, it's the most romantic thing of all. These are the threads that stitch their story, small, strong, ordinary miracles, held with attention, lived with courage, repeated with care. And in the end, that's what our moment together was magical and unforgettable really means when we talk about Mert Ramazan Demir and Afra Saraçoğlu. It means that the miracle wasn't a headline or a single night. It was a practice. It was a promise. It was the choice, over and over, to meet in the middle and make the everyday glow. Thank you for spending this time with me here on Turkish Spotlight Secrets. If this touched something true in you, hit like, share it with someone who needs a reminder that magic often hides in plain sight, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter we uncover. Until then, remember, the moment becomes unforgettable when you choose to be in it, when you're brave enough to feel it, and when you guard it like a treasure. See you in the next video. M.